How on earth can you be this cruel, Grandpa? How on earth could you get the mind to do this to me? You watched me grow under your roof. You fed me. We played together as grandpa and granddaughter should do. I helped you in all farm activities. Do you know the shame I passed through? Do you know how people despised and talked about me? Even my own age mates refused to play with me because of this. Why? Why, Grandpa? Why did you choose to do this to me? Why did you choose to betray me for your selfish interests?
Please, may I know where you are viewing from? And can I implore you to please comment, subscribe, and share this video. It helps us create more and more videos. Thank you.
Favour was a happy little girl. She was always full of energy. She liked to talk, play, and ask many questions. She was only 6 years old, but she was very smart for her age. One day, her mother, Mama Favour, told her some exciting news. Favour, we are going to the village to visit Grandma and Grandpa, Mama Favour said. Favour jumped up in excitement. Really, Mama? I will see Grandpa and Grandma, she asked, her eyes shining with joy. Yes, my dear. We will go tomorrow morning, Mama Favour said with a smile. That night, Favour could not sleep. She kept thinking about the village. She had never been there before, but she had heard stories about it. She imagined tall trees, big farms, and many animals. She was excited. The next morning, Favour and her mother left the city. They got on a big bus. The journey was long. The bus drove past forests, rivers, and hills. Favour kept looking out of the window. She pointed at everything she saw. Mama, look. That cow is so big, she shouted. Yes, my dear. There are many cows in the village, Mama Favour said, laughing. Mama, why are the houses so small here? Favour asked. Because village houses are different from city houses, Mama Favour explained. Favour kept asking questions until she got tired. Then she leaned on her mother and slept. When she woke up, the bus had stopped. They had reached the village. Grandma Lois and Grandpa Lois were waiting for them. When Favour saw them, she ran to them. Grandma, Grandpa, she shouted. Oh, my little Favour, you have grown so much, Grandma Lois said, hugging her tightly. Grandpa Lois smiled. Welcome, my dear. You are now a big girl, he said. Favour felt happy. She held Grandpa's hand and followed him into the house. The village looked different from the city. There were no big roads, no tall buildings, and no cars everywhere. Instead, there were small huts, farms, and many trees. The air smelled fresh. The ground felt soft under her bare feet. Favour loved it. That night, she slept on a soft mat. She could hear the sounds of crickets and frogs outside. It was different from the city, but it felt peaceful. The next morning, Favour woke up early. She heard loud noises outside. When she went out, she saw many children running with baskets in their hands. Mama, where are they going? She asked. They are going to the stream to fetch water and pick fruits, Mama Favour said. Can I go with them? Favour asked, excited. Mama Favour thought for a while, then nodded. Okay, but stay close to the other children. Do not go too far. Favour was happy. She grabbed a small basket and ran after the children. At the stream, she saw clear water flowing over big stones. The children jumped in, splashing and laughing. Come, Favour, a girl called. Favour removed her sandals and stepped into the water. It was cold but felt nice. She splashed water with the other children. They played for a long time, laughing and running around. After some time, the children left the stream and went into the bush to pick fruits. Favour picked mangoes, oranges, and guavas. Her small basket was soon full. She took a big bite of a mango. The sweet juice dripped down her chin. This is the best mango ever, she said happily. Later, the children walked back to the village. Favour felt tired, but she was happy. It was the best day of her life. After a few days, it was time for Mama Favour to go back to the city. She packed her bags and called Favour. Favour, let's go, she said. But Favour shook her head. No, Mama. I want to stay here with Grandpa and Grandma. Mama Favour was surprised. But the city is your home, she said. I will buy you a big doll. We can visit the zoo. But Favour still shook her head. I don't want dolls. I don't want the zoo. I love the village. I want to stay. Mama Favour sighed. All right, but be a good girl. Listen to Grandma and Grandpa. I will come back soon. Favour hugged her mother. She was happy to stay in the village. She waved goodbye as her mother left. Life in the village was fun. Every morning, Favour helped Grandpa Lois on the farm. She carried small tools, planted seeds, and watered crops. Grandpa always smiled and said, "Your hands are quick, just like mine when I was young." In the afternoons, she played with other children. They ran under the big mango tree, climbed palm trees, and played hide-and-seek. Favour loved sitting by the stream and watching fish swim in the water. One day, I will catch a big fish, she told her friends. She felt happy in the village. She loved Grandpa, Grandma, and her new friends. Life was perfect. But something strange started happening. Favour was growing older, but her body was not changing. She was now 12 years old, but she still looked small. She still looked like a 6-year-old. At first, she did not notice. But then, she saw that all her friends were growing taller. Their clothes became small, and they had to get new ones. But Favour's clothes still fit her. She did not need new clothes. Some children started laughing at her. "Why are you so small?" they asked. "You look like a little baby." Favour felt sad. She did not understand why she was not growing. She asked Grandma Lois. "Grandma, why am I still small?" she asked. Grandma Lois looked at her for a long time. Then she shook her head. "Some children grow slowly, my dear. Do not worry. You will grow." But Favour was not sure. She felt like something was wrong. She wanted to know the truth. Favour had always been a happy girl. She loved running around, playing with her friends, and helping her grandfather on the farm. But as she grew older, something strange started happening. She noticed that while her friends were getting taller, she was not. Every year, she stayed the same size, like she had stopped growing. At first, she thought it was normal, but soon, she began to feel different. Her clothes, which used to fit her well, stayed the same while her friends outgrew theirs. She watched as their legs got longer, their arms stretched out, and their voices changed. But she remained the same. People in the village started whispering. Some said it was just how she was, while others believed something was wrong. "Maybe she is cursed," one woman said in a hushed tone when she thought Favour wasn't listening. Favour felt sad whenever she heard these words, but she tried to ignore them. She hoped that one day, she would wake up and be taller like everyone else. Her grandfather, Grandpa Lois, was always kind to her. He never made her feel different. Instead, he told her she was special and that she should not worry. "Everyone grows at their own time," he would say, patting her head. Favour trusted him. After all, he was her grandfather, and he loved her. But there was something strange about Grandpa Lois. He was old, but he never seemed to get older. While other old men in the village walked with sticks and had wrinkled faces, Grandpa Lois was different. His back was still straight, his hands were strong, and his face had only a few wrinkles. It was almost as if time had forgotten him. One day, something even stranger happened. Favour realized that some of her clothes were missing. At first, she thought she had misplaced them. But as days went by, more clothes disappeared. Her favorite red dress was gone. Her blue scarf that her mother gave her before leaving the village was missing too. Maybe the wind blew them away, she told herself. But deep down, she knew something was not right. She decided to ask her grandfather. "Grandpa, have you seen my clothes? Some of them are missing." Grandpa Lois looked at her for a moment, then shook his head. "No, my dear. Maybe the rats took them." Favour frowned. She had never seen rats take clothes before. It didn't make sense. But she didn't want to argue with her grandfather, so she nodded and let it go. But the thought stayed in her mind. What was happening to her clothes? One afternoon, while playing with her best friend Amora, she decided to talk about it. "Amora, something strange is happening," she said. My clothes are disappearing. Amora looked at her with wide eyes. That's really strange. Are you sure someone is not taking them? Favour shrugged. I don't know. Grandpa says rats might have taken them, but I have never seen rats steal clothes. Amora thought for a moment and then whispered, maybe you should check around the house. Maybe someone is hiding them. That night, Favour could not sleep. She kept thinking about Amora's words. What if someone really was hiding her clothes? She decided to find out the truth. Early the next morning, before Grandpa Lois woke up, Favour sneaked out of the house. The air was cold, and the sun was just beginning to rise. She walked carefully to the backyard, where her grandfather had a small farm. Grandpa Lois always told her to stay away from that place. It's not for children, he would say. But today, she had to see for herself. She tiptoed through the backyard, her heart pounding. The ground was soft under her feet, and the leaves rustled in the wind. She reached the small farm and looked around. At first, she didn't see anything unusual. But then, in the corner, under some dry leaves, something caught her eye. She moved closer and gasped. There, hidden under the leaves, was a pile of clothes. And not just any clothes, her clothes. Her red dress, her blue scarf, her missing shirts, they were all there, piled together like a forgotten heap. Favour's hands shook as she reached out and touched them. Why are my clothes here? She whispered. A cold feeling washed over her. She suddenly felt scared. Then, she heard a noise behind her. A soft rustling sound, like someone moving through the bushes. Her heart jumped. She turned around quickly, but she didn't see anyone. Was someone watching her? Without thinking twice, she grabbed a handful of her clothes and ran back to the house as fast as she could. She didn't stop until she was safely inside her room, locking the door behind her. She was breathing hard, her chest rising and falling quickly. She looked at the clothes in her hands. Why would Grandpa Lois hide them? What was he doing with them? That evening, she met Amora again and told her everything. Amora's eyes widened. Favour, this is serious. This is not normal. I know, Favour whispered. But I don't know what to do. Amora looked around, as if making sure no one was listening. Then she leaned in close and said, we should go see the village seer. Maybe she will know what this means. Favour hesitated. The village seer was a mysterious old woman who lived at the edge of the village. People said she could see things that others could not. Some were afraid of her, but others believed she had great wisdom. Favour bit her lip. She didn't know if going to the seer was a good idea. But deep in her heart, she knew she had to find out the truth. If Grandpa Lois was hiding something, she needed to know what it was. Early the next morning, before the sun was fully up, Favour and Amora made their way to the seer's hut. The path was quiet, except for the chirping of birds and the distant sound of roosters crowing. Favour's heart was beating fast, but she kept walking. The seer's hut was small and dark, with strange things hanging from the roof, dried herbs, animal bones, and colourful beads. Favour hesitated at the entrance, but Amora pulled her inside. The seer was an old woman with sharp eyes that seemed to look deep into a person's soul. She sat on a wooden stool, stirring something in a clay pot. Without looking up, she said, I have been expecting you. Favour's breath caught in her throat. How did she know? Come, child, the seer said, her voice low and serious. Tell me what troubles you. Favour swallowed hard, then slowly told the old woman everything. She talked about her missing clothes, finding them hidden in the backyard, and how she had stopped growing. As she spoke, she felt a tear slide down her cheek. Why is this happening to me? She asked. The seer listened quietly, then finally looked at Favour with deep, knowing eyes. Your grandfather has been taking your clothes, she said. And he is using them for something very dark. Favour felt her heart stop. What do you mean? She stammered. The seer sighed. Your grandfather is keeping himself young by taking your growth. As long as he holds onto those clothes, you will never grow. Favour gasped. No. Grandpa loves me. He would never. The seer held up a hand. You must burn the clothes, she said. Only then will the curse be broken. Favour sat in stunned silence. Burn the clothes? But what if Grandpa found out? What if something terrible happened? She didn't know what to do. But one thing was certain, she had to stop whatever was happening. Favour sat on her bed, staring at the pile of clothes she had retrieved from the backyard. Her mind was spinning. Could what the seer said be true? Was Grandpa Lois really taking her growth? It was too hard to believe. He had always been kind to her. He had always loved her. But then, why was he hiding her clothes? She knew she couldn't ignore what she had learned. If she wanted to grow, if she wanted to be like her friends, she had to do something. But burning the clothes? That seemed so dangerous. What if Grandpa Lois got angry? What if something terrible happened? Amora held her hand. We have to do it, Favour. You have to get your growth back. Favour took a deep breath and nodded. Let's do it tonight. That night, when Grandpa Lois was fast asleep, Favour and Amora sneaked out of the house. The moon was full, casting a pale glow over the village. The air was cold, and the wind whispered through the trees. Favour carried the clothes in a bundle, holding them tightly against her chest. Every step she took felt heavy, like she was walking with a stone on her back. They reached the village square, where a large open space lay unused at night. It was the perfect place to start a fire without being seen. Amora brought out a matchbox she had taken from her mother's kitchen. Her hands shook as she struck a match, the tiny flame flickering in the darkness. Favour took a deep breath and dropped the clothes onto the ground. The fire caught quickly, the flames licking at the fabric, turning red, blue, and yellow into black ashes. She watched as the smoke rose into the night sky, her heart pounding in her chest. As the clothes burned, a strange sound filled the air. It was like a low whisper, growing louder and louder until it became a scream. Favour and Amora clutched each other, fear gripping their hearts. The fire roared, sending sparks flying in all directions. Then, suddenly, the wind stopped. The flames died down, leaving only glowing embers. The night became silent once more. Favour touched her face. She felt different. Lighter. She looked down at her hands, then at her legs. Was it just her imagination, or did she feel taller? Before she could say anything, a loud cry came from the direction of her house. It was Grandpa Lois. They ran back as fast as they could. When they reached the house, they found him on the ground, clutching his chest, his face twisted in pain. His strong hands were now weak. His straight back was now bent. Wrinkles covered his once smooth face. Favour gasped. He was aging before her eyes. Grandpa Lois looked at her, his eyes filled with shock. "What have you done?" he whispered, his voice shaky. Tears filled Favour's eyes. "Grandpa, why did you do it? Why did you take my growth?" He coughed, his body trembling. "I was afraid," he said weakly. "Afraid of getting old. Afraid of being alone." Favour felt her heart break. She had loved him so much, and now she saw the truth. He had stolen from her. But he had also been afraid. As the sun rose, the village gathered around, whispering among themselves. Grandpa Lois, once strong and youthful, was now just an old man. And Favour? She was finally growing. From that day on, she never stopped growing. She caught up with her friends. She became tall and strong. But she never forgot that night. She never forgot the fire that changed everything. And she never forgot the lesson she learned, that fear can make people do terrible things, but courage can set them free. The morning sun cast a golden hue over the village, its light gently waking the people from their sleep. But this morning was different. Whispers floated through the air as villagers gathered outside Grandpa Lois's house, their eyes filled with shock and curiosity. No one could believe what they were seeing. Favour stood in the middle of the crowd, her heart pounding. Grandpa Lois was no longer the strong, lively man they had always known. He sat on a wooden stool, his back hunched, his hands trembling. His once black hair had turned completely white, and deep wrinkles covered his face. He looked up at the villagers with weary eyes. An elder stepped forward, his voice filled with concern. "Lois, what has happened to you?" Grandpa Lois sighed, his voice weak. "I was afraid," he admitted. "Afraid of growing old, afraid of losing my place in the world." Murmurs spread through the crowd. "Fear! How could a man like Grandpa Lois be afraid? Favour swallowed hard. She knew the truth had to be told. He was taking my growth, she said, her voice steady. He hid my clothes and took my growth so he wouldn't age. Gasps filled the air. The villagers turned to Grandpa Lois, their eyes wide with disbelief. Some shook their heads, others whispered among themselves. A woman, Amora's mother, stepped forward. But why, Lois? You had everything: respect, strength, wisdom. Why would you do this to a child? Tears welled in Grandpa Lois's eyes. I was scared, he admitted again. When I saw my hair turning grey, when I felt my body slowing down, I couldn't bear it. So I found a way to stop it. But I never thought about what it was doing to her. The village chief, an old man with kind eyes, raised his hand for silence. He looked at Favour, then at Grandpa Lois. Fear is powerful, he said slowly. But it cannot rule our lives. What is taken unjustly will always return to its rightful owner. The villagers nodded in agreement. Some looked at Favour with admiration, others with guilt for never noticing her struggle. Grandpa Lois wiped his face with his frail hands. I was wrong, he whispered. I see that now. Favour felt a lump in her throat. She had loved her grandfather dearly. Seeing him like this, weak, broken, hurt more than she expected. She stepped closer and knelt before him. Grandpa, she said softly, I forgive you. Tears rolled down his cheeks. He took her hands in his grip weaker than she remembered. Thank you, my child. The village chief nodded approvingly. This is a lesson for us all. We cannot fight nature. We must embrace every stage of life with courage and wisdom. That day, the village held a gathering. They prepared food, told stories, and sang songs. It wasn't just for Grandpa Lois, it was for everyone. A reminder that life moved forward, and every stage had its purpose. As the sun set, Favour stood by the river, watching her reflection. She felt different, stronger, wiser. She had faced something bigger than her and had come out braver. She smiled. Amora soon joined her, sitting beside her in silence. How do you feel? Amora finally asked. Favour thought for a moment. Lighter, she admitted. But also different. Like I have grown in a way I don't fully understand. Amora smiled. Maybe you have. Sometimes, growth isn't just about getting taller. Favour nodded. She knew Amora was right. She had grown not in height, but in strength, wisdom, and courage.